Okay, y'all, so we just got out of court, and I mean, day one of Cassie's cross-examination has been a hell of a day. This was the first day in court that I think there was not a tired eye. Everybody was really in tune and hanging on to every single word. There is a ton of stuff that was debunked today. Like, I'm gonna be honest with y'all, I still feel how I feel and what I said as far as like, I don't think that, unfortunately, I don't think that Puff is gonna walk away scot-free. I don't think that. But the prosecutors from the beginning have been saying that their case is based on Cassie, victim 1, and victim Jane. I've heard that victim Jane should be taking a stand tomorrow after Cassie finishes, so we'll see what happens with that. But baby, if the prosecution is trying to lock Diddy up for the rest of his life based off of Cassie and her testimony, it's not going to happen. It is not going to happen. Man, they debunked so much. They debunked, yesterday Cassie said to us that basically that there was just no regard for like her health. Like she talked about, you know, having these UTIs and sores in her mouth and just basically just being used almost as like a sex slave, like put through the ringer, no one cared. And you know, that's what she alleged. Today, they cleared up a lot of that through text messages and through conversations that Cassie couldn't push back on, because the way that it came out today was not only were Cassie and Diddy both on drugs. We found out today that Diddy overdosed around the same time that Houston passed away in February. I believe that was 20. But don't quote me on that. But it got to a point where like Puff was more functioning than she was. She was the person that was, you know, heavily abusing drugs, and it got to a point where he was actually trying to almost like save her from herself, and that caused a lot of friction in their relationship. And oh my God, like all of the time that we've been having these conversations about the CNN video, and you know, I told you guys that yesterday the prosecution taking so much time to humanize and make you empathize with Cassie about her, you know, domestic violence that she went through. I understand that Diddy is not on trial for domestic violence, but yesterday I understood it. I understood why the prosecution included it, and today I understand why the defense didn't run away from speaking about it from the very beginning and the inclusion of it, right? So in the very beginning of this whole thing, I told y'all that the prosecution opened up their opening statements making Diddy a monster, like a complete monster. He drags, you know, y'all seen him drag this woman. He had this escort pee in her mouth, and you know what I mean, choke. Oh wait, I got it. Baby, my freaking camera cut off because I had to go get that interview, y'all. But here's a summation of today, to continue. They debunked a ton. I have a whole notebook full of things. Today I'm actually going to be able to sit down and do that full video. Y'all know I do a video right after I leave court, and then once I get home and I'm able to like decompress my notes, I got y'all. But to get to the point of what I'm trying to just give y'all really briefly, today they were able to debunk a lot. So number one, we heard about Cassie dating Michael B. Jordan, which people were like, well, Cassie's not on trial, Diddy is. Why is that relevant? Why is the Kid Cudi information relevant? So with Michael B. Jordan, it was relevant because what they're trying to do, what the defense is trying to do right now, is they are trying to paint a very clear picture of, yes, because listen, they owned it and they accepted it in the beginning. Yes, we know our client messed up a lot, a whole lot, and it's on video and we can't get around it, and there's photos of her abuse. But they're trying to show that there were things that were triggering the abuse. And at first I was like, this might not fare well for them, because I had been told about Cassie and the Michael B. Jordan, you know, defense that Puff's team was going to take. I've been told about this, I want to say almost like maybe like Monday or Sunday of this week. So I knew about it, but I was like, I'm going to sit on that. I'm not going to talk about it because I don't really know how that can fare, because at the end of the day, she, you know, she is a victim of domestic violence, and to try and bring in the fact that she dated another man, so that should allow for someone to put their hands on her the way that Puff was doing. I wasn't touching that conversation at all. I wanted to let it play out to see how the conversation around it would go and how the setup would be. And basically, the conversation that they were trying to have today, which is what I was bringing in with that CNN video, when they debunked a lot of things or brought up a lot of things like Michael B. Jordan or like Kid Cudi, the point was that you guys were doing a ton of drugs, and this is a narrative that Cassie painted, which is why, to me, I keep saying, like, you know, even if Puff does get time and doesn't walk away scot-free, and I don't see him walking away scot-free from this. I ain't trying to put nobody in jail. I'm just being honest with y'all about what I'm seeing and how I feel. I don't believe it's going to be that spend the rest of your life in jail that the government is going for, because when they brought up Michael B. Jordan, when they brought up Kid Cudi, when they debunked, you know, the CNN video and everything that led up to that, and showed that Cassie, y'all, the way that the defense set this up today, and Cassie really had no rebuttal, and the prosecution, they like threw her to the sharks today. I'm not even gonna lie. Like, yesterday when Cassie was speaking to the prosecutors, right? The prosecutors are the people, and I keep reminding y'all so that y'all know who I'm talking about when I'm talking about it. The prosecutors are the people that want Puff locked up. Yesterday when she was talking to the prosecutors, the whole point of their conversation around the CNN video was, okay, we're going to show, right? Because they've already established that, you know, they have Diddy on text saying, hey, fly this person in. You have Cassie's testimony that people were being paid. You have the escort's testimony that they were being paid, right? So there's that. But with Cassie, I think, because again, none of the escorts we've heard from so far have said that they've been kept beyond their will. They were threatened with videos. Like, that's a big part of this. Cassie is that testimony. She is that character in this whole thing, right? Yesterday, Cassie testified about what led up to the CNN video using part of a text conversation, which I thought was so stupid by the prosecution, because with everything else, with a lot of other things, they've been trying to like put it out there before the defense had a chance to put it out there and kind of like create the narrative around it. I don't know why they didn't do that with this video. It was so bad, yo. Like, I felt bad for her on this thing. So basically, they brought in the conversation that the defense used yesterday. And I think that conversation was something like, when she talked about not wanting to mess herself up because of her big movie premiere that was coming up, and, you know, not wanting Diddy to feel like she didn't want to do it. The way that they painted this picture about what led to that CNN video that we saw, the beating video from 2016, was that Cassie was this, you know, hopeless romantic who just loved this man so much and always wanted to make him happy, even if it was at the detriment of her own career, her own body, everything, right? Today, the defense refreshed her memory of that and then said, hold on, we're gonna go through all the text messages leading up into that. And the prosecution was trying to object so many different things because they didn't want it to be on record, and the judge was like, nah, the judge was overruling it. Like, he was letting it fly. So they take us back to March 3rd. Mind you, that Cassie beating video, I believe, was like March 5th or March 6th. I believe it was March 5th, 2016. They take us back to March 3rd. Starting from that day, Cassie and Diddy are having conversations, and Cassie is the one leading into all the sexual conversations. She about 4 times mentions the text. I don't even know what the text said. The texts were vulgar to the point where they didn't read them out loud in the courtroom. And they've been doing that a lot with any like sexually explicit things, just to, you know, just to save the you know, the victims, just the alleged victims, I guess, you know, like some dignity. Like, but she had sent a couple of those text messages, right? It got to a point where basically Puff was like, okay, well, like it was around the time that they're about to link up to do whatever. They didn't know what they were going to do. So Puff is asking her, because she's saying like, yo, I want to do something, but, you know, I can't get too crazy. Like she's sending all these texts, and he's like, well, too bad you got to work. He's prioritizing work for her. He's like, too bad you got to work. And then she keeps going. So finally he's like, all right, well, what you going to do tonight? Like, whatever. And she's just like, oh, I want to be with my baby. So then they start having a conversation, because now, you know what I mean? Now the conversation is initiated about the freak offs or whatever. But again, Cassie led into that. And the defense made it clear. They went back and they wanted to clarify who led into the conversation about that freak off day with the CNN video. And I'm going to tell y'all why I keep bringing up this video. There's a lot more, but this one I thought was a big bombshell. And they didn't even finish this one. Because not only did Cassie initiate the conversation, but Cassie made it seem like, you know, during these freak offs, her body was violated. You know, she made it seem like Diddy had no regard for her health. She talked about having sores in her mouth, and basically all he said was, oh, you need to go to the doctor. She talked about having so many UTIs back to back that like antibiotics weren't even helping her anymore. She was trying to figure it out naturally, but like it wasn't happening. She was in pain because of the back-to-back UTIs. Like there was just no regard, or no, like she had no control over these situations she was put in. It was a job. She just had to show up to her job, and she did it because she loved this man, and she wanted this man to love her and to not go anywhere and be anywhere with anybody else, right? Multiple times in the conversations leading up to this CNN video, Puff is asking Cassie, like, well, what you want to do tonight? Where you want to go? What you doing tonight? What's the word type vibes, right? So she finally gets to the point where she's like, I just want to be with you. So now he's like, okay, like, he's telling her, like, since it's your idea, you set it up. Like, what do you want tonight to be like? Like, what is... She talked about it was a very well choreographed thing when they did the freak offs. She didn't tell us she was choreographing too. And that's what it was given. Like, he's asking her, like, well, who do you want to do it with? And blah, blah, blah. Like, she had control at some points. And the reason why all of this is important is because, yes, yesterday, prosecution did an amazing job at showing us that they do have proof that Cassie was threatened with videos from these freak-offs and things of that nature. But today, even when talking about the CNN video, and when I'm talking to you guys about the control, some of the control that she did have, right? There was one point where she's preparing to go and meet him to figure this out, and or to figure another freak off out, and she's like, dang, I forgot the tablet. And he's like, oh shoot. Like, she was okay with the tablets being there and things being recorded, and like, today just painted such a different narrative around that whole evening, right? To the point where, like, Diddy at one point, the person that was in the room with them, whoever ended up in the room, because they brought up a man named Johnny, but then she had said at one point it was like, I believe she said, or like another name, whatever. But before they got to the room, as they were still planning, Puff said to her, we could just watch and it just be us. Like, there's a guy named Johnny that they booked from some sort of service, and I guess the service was, it was a strip service. So at that point, if Puff is saying to you, because another thing that Cassie made a big deal of yesterday was, because here's the issue, right? A lot of this is Cassie not saying, I don't want to do this. Not saying no. Not saying, it's like he doesn't know that you don't want to do these things, right? You're alleging that he knew you didn't want to do these things, and he did it anyway, and he threatened you, you know, with certain things if you didn't do it, like if you didn't comply, right? But now you're here and you're not pushing back on either. You're not pushing back on none of these conversations. We're having conversations about him literally saying to you, she said, oh, he never wanted to spend time just us. So I did the freak offs because that was the only time that we could spend together. And even in the freak offs, he never wanted it to just be us. When I tell y'all, Puff was giving her this one, right? This is one. That's the moment that led up to that CNN video. He was giving her every bit of, it could just be us, baby. We could just chill. On her, like, no, that's not what I want to do. I want to have fun. I want to have a fun night. I want to relax. I don't want to, you know what I mean? Even down to, she talked about how high they used to get during these freak offs, and, you know, how it made her almost like kind of like defenseless, and, you know, like she couldn't remember a lot, and it was just hard on her body, and you know, like it got her to a point where she just didn't have a choice. There was a conversation that was had prior to the Intercontinental moment, which is where we see Puff beating her on camera, where and y'all remember Cassie said, I wanted to basically do the freak off to get ahead of the fact that Monday I needed to have a good day, because that was my big movie premiere. So if I made him happy, I knew I could have a good day. Not only did they talk about today the fact that Puff went to a brunch with her to celebrate the movie premiere, but, you know, he kept telling her he was proud of her all weekend. He was telling her to relax. He was telling her, like, yo, look, if you're gonna do this freak off, let's do it early so you can get your rest. You got, you know what I mean, your big day coming up. He's like, yo, if we do it, let's not get caught up in the matrix. Like, let's not do too much. Like, let's take it easy on the drugs and, you know, all of that. Like, it was just a completely different picture that was painted. And it wasn't like it was just testimony, so you got to figure out whether it was true or not. It was in a text thread that the prosecutors chose not to even address. And every time they tried to overrule some of this stuff being like admitted in and Cassie having to speak to it, the judge let it fly because it's like, it's valid. I don't understand why the prosecution would throw her to the wolves like that today. They made a lot of her testimony and her credibility look horrible. Look so horrible. Oh my God. They brought back up the Suge Knight stuff that she mentioned, right? And Diddy's team debunked that. Again, making her credibility look so shaky. They said, hey, you mentioned yesterday in the examination that you were in the car, that you stayed home when Diddy and his security guard went to, he stopped in the middle of the freak off and went to go run down to Mel's Diner because Suge Knight was there. They put guns on them. Allegedly, they did all these things, right? To go run into Suge Knight. And the defense is like, do you remember when you spoke to the police, like, or the prosecutors, and you told them on this date that you were in the car with them and you were crying? Basically, like, you were made to go. Again, trying to make the example of she didn't have a choice. And she was like, no, I didn't say that. So they went back. They read the interview she did with prosecutors with her saying that she was in the car and she was like basically forced to go. She didn't want to go and that she was crying. And it was like, and she was like, I don't remember saying that because Cassie said, I don't remember saying that because I've always said I was not there when they went to go confront or whatever happened with Suge Knight. I don't know what the prosecutors are doing here, but they, man, it looked pretty insane. Like it really looked pretty insane. Wow. Like even the drug stuff, like, you know, a lot of that conversation that they were having today was about, you know, they both were on drugs. And this is why I asked, if you guys go watch my interview I did with Cassie's attorney, this is why I asked him, like, do you feel like today, the way that they talked about drugs and withdrawal, and they allowed Cassie today and yesterday, even the prosecution, they allowed Cassie to paint the narrative of what their drug use was and what trying to get off drugs was and what that looked like. And Cassie mentioned, you know, how hard it was, how hard the withdrawals were, how irritable they made you, how angry they made you. Today, they asked her directly in regards to Diddy, when he was trying to withdraw from drugs, was he irritable? She said, yes. Was he angry? Yes. Way more angry? Yes. Was it harder when he was trying to withdraw as far as his anger? Yes. And I'm like, oh, they're not trying to take away from that video, but they're not running from it because they're using this to paint the picture of, like, they're softening it. Like, and they've already admitted it happened and it was wrong and it shouldn't have happened. But now they're adding context to some things, which they're attempting to try and humanize him, but they can only do it but so much around this video, because no matter how you look at it, drug withdrawal or not, that girl should not have been hit like that, nor should she have been dragged around that floor like that. But they were using Cassie today to basically create a narrative of, like, it's not just, you know, this man is sober and just, you know, being this animal. He had issues, and that's what brought the animal out of him. Now, it's going to be up to the jury to determine whether, you know, the drugs and all that other stuff, whether it matters that triggered the animal or if they just cared that the animal was there in the beginning. But again, he's not on trial for domestic violence. However, they're using this because they want to prove that him being able to get to that point shows how far he will go in any situation. Today was just like, man, I really don't feel like, you know, I don't feel like Cassie was prepared well at all for this cross. There was so much that just literally fell flat.